Hey everyone, Chris Carter here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. We've got Alan Saunders from SteelersNow.com to join us to talk about the blockbuster trade. More time to think about it. I've watched more film, what it actually means for the Steelers, and why I don't think it means they're actually all in on the 2025 season the way that some people are making it out to be. We'll talk about that and the impact on the defense and the offense of Jonnu Smith, all here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things of the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. As the we're joined by the man himself, Alan Saunders from SteelersNow.com. You know him, you love him. Alan, things got crazy Monday morning. I was just born a bowl of cereal. And then Omar just said, nah, Chris, you ain't having a normal day today because, of course, he made the blockbuster trade. I did a whole emergency episode on that. If you missed all of that, essentially, the Steelers have traded away Minkah Fitzpatrick and a 2027 fifth-round pick, not a 2026 fifth-round pick. So this is 2 years down the line. And in return, they have gotten back Jalen Ramsey, former All-Pro cornerback, Jonnu Smith, Pro Bowl tight end for this last season, and a 2027 seventh-round pick. So a pick swap, basically, for Jonnu Smith and a straight-up for Jalen Ramsey and Minkah Fitzpatrick. Alan, before we get into the particulars of this, your thoughts on the trade itself and what it does for the Steelers?
Well, they're getting a large infusion of talent, and basically, I mean, in my eyes, trading nothing for Jonnu Smith. I mean, a 2-year out, fifth for a seventh is barely rates. They had an extra fifth from the Pickens trade as well. So it really means basically nothing. I think that's huge. It's huge for an offense that has big problems with the number of pass catchers in a unit that's probably going to want to throw the ball more with Aaron Rodgers this year. It will not wave away their wide receiver 2 problem. But
agreed.
It will sort of lessen the impact a little bit of how much that problem can hurt them, I think. And then, Ramsey versus Fitzpatrick is interesting. 2 players on the downhill of their career, 130, 128. I think Fitzpatrick is interesting because I haven't seen a physical decline. He just hasn't played as well. But if you compare their play over the last couple of years, I think Ramsey's been better. It's going to look bad for the Steelers if Fitzpatrick goes to Miami and suddenly goes back to being the all-pro version of himself.
Very true.
But I think if you just look at the players they've been, Ramsey has been the better and more valuable player.
I agree in the sense the last couple of years. I think that's you can look at that, especially Ramsey's creates turnovers. He also hasn't gotten picked on in Miami. He's allowed a few touchdowns, and when I look through the tape, a lot of those touchdowns that were attributed to him were oftentimes him playing underneath coverage and expecting safety help, and the safety just being nowhere to be found. And after the play, he just looks at the guy like, "Come on!" And so I thought that was a little interesting. So I hear you on that. I want to push back on this notion that we've seen across national media, and I get it because it's the popular thing to do. It's an easy talking point, but this notion that this move and the getting Aaron Rodgers and trading for DK Metcalf, that the Steelers are now quote unquote all in on the season. The Steelers do want to win. Like, there's no doubt in my mind they want to win this season, but just as much as they always want to win every season. I don't think anything's changed there. But where people are saying all in to me does not mean just making something. They would be all in if they traded a second-round pick or a third-round pick for Jalen Ramsey and instead of Minkah Fitzpatrick. And now Minkah Fitzpatrick was still with the team. And if they didn't get a third-round pick for George Pickens, if he was still on the team, the all in would be saying, hey, we're amassing every piece of talent for right now, and we are saying we don't care about the 2026 NFL draft. We don't care about trading up for a quarterback next year. It is win now with Aaron Rodgers. That would be all in. But that's not what they've done. When you look at what they've done when you look at the additions of the older players they brought in, Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, Darius Slay, Jalen Ramsey, Jonnu Smith, all those players, they gave up a 2025 second round pick. They gave up Minkah Fitzpatrick, and they gave a 2027 fifth round pick, and they got a pick back for that. And in giving away George Pickens, they got back a third round pick for 2026. That is not all in on the 2025 season. All in would be the way the Rams approached their era in the NFL. When you look back at their history, the Rams were a team that when you go back and you look at how they handled the draft for 7 straight years, the Rams did not have a first round pick. That is going all in. And they cashed in. Aaron Donald got a Super Bowl ring. Matt Stafford came to town. That is going all in. But to me, Alan, I don't think it's that. Am I on? Do you agree with me here? Or do you feel like this is them putting all their chips on the table?
I mean, that's pretty easy, Chris. How many contracts did the Steelers restructure, pushing money out beyond the 2025 season this offseason?
None.
How many free agent contracts did the Steelers sign containing void years to artificially reduce the current cap hit at the expense of the future cap hit?
None.
How many future draft picks did they trade away this offseason for a player for this year?
None.
I mean, okay, they're not all in. Like, you play poker, all in is all the chips.
All my chips.
Those are all chips
exactly.
that Omar Khan is holding on to, saying, okay, we want to win. And we're doing everything we can to win. The Steelers are doing everything they can to win without taking away from the future. Yeah. That's where they're doing everything they can to win without taking away from the future. And if you follow the NFL, you know the teams that are really doing everything they can to win are like, forget the future. You mentioned Rams and all the picks. How about the Eagles and the way they've leveraged void years to way overspend the cap right now? You got to pay the piper eventually. It's not like they can do that forever. They're picking right now is their time to win. The Steelers did that for years with the contract restructure.
That's where I was going to go to next.
Kick the can down the road, okay? They're not doing any of those things, so they cannot be all in. I think part of the problem is that people don't understand the Steelers are not playing a binary game. People have it in their mind that either you are doing everything you're doing to try to win or you should be tanking. And that is not who they are, and that's not what they're all about. They're building this team. They're in the middle of a massive rebuild.
Yes.
Yeah, they got some older pieces. But the idea is when this team wins a Super Bowl, the core of this team is going to be Zach Frazier and Keanu Benton and Broderick Jones and Derek Harmon. And guys like Slay and Ramsey are probably not going to be around. Would they like to win a Super Bowl this year? Sure. Is that realistic? Probably not. I mean, despite everything they've done, and I think that's the other part of this. The other part of this is that there have been times in NFL history, and maybe even this year in the NFL, in a certain situation where you could look at this Steelers team and say, yes, that would be a good bet to go all in. But everything they've done, all these moves that have everybody saying they're going all in, they're still got the third best odds to win the AFC North. They still, and that doesn't even include talking about Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes trying to get out of the AFC. It's just the situation is Omar is holding them chips because he's got a pair of sevens. Exactly. It's a good hand, but it's not the best. And he knows the guy over there has got aces. Right? So just hang on and save your chips for the right time, and it's not just yet.
Pay that man here the money. But in all seriousness, there's my Rounders joke. But I'm right with you here. Now, here's the thing. I will agree. I do say this. Omar Khan is switching some things up. Like, this man is turning over the roster every single year. So, like, this will be his 5th straight year with a new quarterback starting at the quarterback position. Granted, I don't think it was him that started within 2021. He wasn't officially GM, but still, it's the team's 5th straight year of Ben Roethlisberger, Mitch Trubisky, Kenny Pickett, Justin Fields, and now it will be Aaron Rodgers. 5 straight years of a different quarterback starting at the beginning of the season for your team. And you look at all the other turnover that they have gone through just to try to reshuffle things, get the right guys in, get the wrong guys out, and make things happen. Omar Khan's not sitting on his hands. So he's definitely being aggressive, but aggressive is not the same as, like you're saying, all in. I 1,000% agree with you. Aggressive would be if we wake up 9 a.m. tomorrow, we did on Monday, or if you're watching this Tuesday, we wake up today and all of a sudden Terry McLaurin is a Pittsburgh Steeler for a second round pick. They're like, okay, they are all in now. Like, this is all in. They're giving away top picks for really, really good players to win right now. Then I would be there, but that's not what they're doing. So we're agreed on that. But let's talk about next the impact of how this works on the defense, because essentially they have swapped a former All-Pro safety for a former All-Pro cornerback. What does that do? We'll talk about that next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Alan Saunders. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, remind you, this show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning on a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place, so you can stop just managing your money and start actually building wealth. If you're like me, you're probably having a lot of subscriptions and a lot of places to order on with orders online. Over that time, that adds up to be a lot of money. Well, with Monarch Money, you can keep a close watch on all that spending and put it all in an easy-to-see, organized, and convenient presentation. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year only at Monarch Money. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm Chris Carter. He's Alan Saunders from SteelersNow.com. Alan, okay, let's talk about the swap here. Now, I do think this, if we are to take anything out of this trade of we'll talk about Jonnu Smith later. But if we're talking about the flip of Minkah Fitzpatrick and Jalen Ramsey, like you said, both guys on the downhill of their career, still I think both very good players in their own rights. Like, I don't think that Minkah Fitzpatrick is a bum. I know some people put that out there and they say, oh, he's so bad, he's so this. I don't think it's that with him. I do think that he hasn't been a major playmaker for the Steelers as a turnover creator, and that leads to, as Jerry Dulac, my colleague at the Post-Gazette, reported, the Steelers saying, hey, you know what? We are paying a premium for a safety who's not being that. Now, Minkah Fitzpatrick still did a lot of little things right. He communicated. He was a big part of that, and I don't think that he was part that they are getting rid of him because he's been up. That is the issue with him, is that the communication was off because of him. I don't think it has anything to do with those communication breakdowns, or like George Pickens trying addition by subtraction. I think purely this might be a stylistic switch of, hey, we're going to get a player in a similar part of their career who has similar past success, but at the cornerback position, which is a more valuable position in today's NFL. Do you agree with that stance, or do you have another viewpoint here?
Yeah, I don't get the impression the Steelers went into this trade looking to trade Minkah Fitzpatrick. I think they just found a deal that they think made their team better and went and did it. Obviously they did have some interest in doing this. Going back to, you can recall, they showed an abnormal amount of interest in safeties in the pre-draft process. So clearly this is something they were at least thinking about. None of that ended up coming to pass. Alki Starks was the one guy they brought in that kind of sparked that discussion, ends up on the Baltimore Ravens. But I think it's interesting because I don't think they were looking to trade Minkah Fitzpatrick, but you can make if you have equal talent at safety and corner, the corner is going to be worth more always. Yeah. And that's just the value. So if you think they're about even and you're getting a Pro Bowl tight end in the swap, why not? It's not going to be a transition that doesn't have downsides, but like the upside is so big that like I think you just kind of shrug them off. Like I'm so like Jonnu Smith is really good, and is and what's the difference? You're just slightly inconveniencing your defense with the similarly talented player. At worst, I think you may be better off. So yeah, I mean, I think I'm not sure how it's going to work out. I mean, where will he play? I don't know. There's a number of different ways I could see it going, but I mean, I just think, yeah, it might be. Nobody had like another outside corner at the top of the Steelers to-do list, but it makes just a lot of sense to get the value they got.
I think it's interesting also to see, what the Steelers did contractually. The Dolphins will pay $7 million of Jalen Ramsey's contract for this season. The Steelers giving him a $1.5 million raise there. I'm not great with math, but I think that still puts him at what, like a $18 million cap hit. I don't know,
18, 19, somewhere in there. Yeah.
So something like that, and then sending away Minkah Fitzpatrick. I have not seen the details as far as how that contract's going to work, but I kind of imagine at the end of the day, this is kind of going to be a salary swap that gets that the Steelers are not going to have depreciably so much less salary cap space because of that move in particular. Now, Jonnu Smith, that's a different story because they are adding his contract. They're not giving away another player for that. But I still think there's space to make other moves on this roster.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there probably will be. I mean, like I think we should be paying attention now to the free safety market. Like I think, that there's enough guys out there, and maybe they want to play Ramsey at free safety. I don't know. And we've seen corners go down this road before. Charles Woodson, Rod Woodson. There's been others that aren't coming to my head right now, but. We've seen corners do this. It's not crazy to think that he might, but I still think they need a body at free safety anyway. So yeah, I mean, I think we'll pay attention to that. But I think the really interesting thing is, it's like, where do you play Jalen Ramsey? Well, you can play him in the slot, you can play him outside, you can play him at safety, and like, as a fan or as us, you can sit here at this time of year and be like, man, like. There's some downsides to each of these, right? There's some like, hey, this could be good, but this would be bad. This could be good, this would be bad. And I think the thing that everyone is ignoring is when he steps on the field, the offense is not going to have any idea what he is doing because all of those are viable options.
Mm-hmm.
And that, there may be some pros and cons to each of those, but the ability to be so multiple that you can do all these different things. It's like if Jalen Ramsey is out on the field with two other safeties and two corners, is that the regular nickel or is that the three safety nickel?
Exactly. That's a really good question. That's a really good question.
I don't know. Where's he playing? Is he playing nickel? Is he playing safety? Right. So like Juan Thornhill is a 5th DB. I'm cool with that. Beanie Bishop is a 6th DB. I'm cool with that. Figure it out. Like, I think those guys are good enough. They just got to figure out where they're going to play them. That'll be something really fun to watch at training camp.
I think it'll be a lot of fun to see where alignment goes. I mean, we're going to be taking notes every day about who's inside, who's outside, who's dropping back deep, who's coming up underneath. Jalen Ramsey played a bunch of slot in his past few years. I mean, he's moved around. I mean, I watched the Dolphins tape, to get ready for stuff, and I'm going to have a film study out on him hopefully tomorrow for the Post Gazette, depending on publishing times. But when I looked at his tape and I was looking like, man, he literally was everywhere in this defense. And it was so hard to just, whenever I looked at it, I was like, well, he's not there. He's not there. I literally have to freeze the frame and look, okay, there's 5. There he is in this position. And so that could be a big chess piece for Terrell Austin and this team, which Terrell Austin loves to scheme up secondary things. Now, I'll also say this. The big thing is Minkah Fitzpatrick is a big part of their communication and keeping everyone on the same page and making sure. And I mean, how many times did you and I see a practice where Minkah Fitzpatrick would come off the first team defense when the second team defense goes in, he'd go right there and stand with Terrell Austin and they just talk about all the things. They won't have that presence anymore. And that they have to hope to not miss. They have to find a way to neutralize, or they have to find a way to make up for not having that kind of presence in the secondary, because Minkah Fitzpatrick was basically a coach on the field. And even when he wasn't getting turnovers, that did bring value to their defense.
Yeah. And I don't know Jalen Ramsey, good player. I don't think I've seen anything in his history that suggests he's going to replace that. But also, their communication and coordination wasn't very good last year.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I shed a lot of tears for cutting out that aspect of the game. In fact, I think I give Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin a lot of credit for saying, hey, where are the Steelers fans who were upset about the number of changes that were promised that had not been followed up upon? I mean, you changed everything. So, yeah, Do I know how it's going to play out? No, but I'm not going to say it's bad just because it's different when before wasn't very good either.
So real quick before we go to the tight end position, free agent safeties that are names that people are definitely going to bring up. Justin Simmons, the big one, 32 years old this season, coming off a not so great season with the Falcons. Jordan Whitehead, a lot of Pitt fans remember him from his Pitt days. He's coming off of being a free agent at 28 years old with the Buccaneers. Julian Blackmon, a 27-year-old player who's coming off a season with the Colts. All three of those guys are free agents right now. There's other names out there, but those three are the three that I look at the most in this situation. Do you view any of those three as being reasonable additions the Steelers will make, or do you think if the Steelers add at safety, it's going to be via trade with another team out there at some point?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I don't know what's out there in terms of the trade market. You know,
it's tough.
Them trading Minkah Fitzpatrick was not on my radar, so I haven't done a lot of research as to what might possibly be available in terms of trades. You know, I have looked into Simmons a little bit, just since the deal, and Blackmon, and Simmons wasn't great last year. I don't know that you can be picky when you're talking about it's July. Right. And you need a starter or a quasi starter or someone that's probably going to play a lot. I've always liked Jordan Whitehead. I don't know that he's the best fit for their defense. He's played in really dissimilar schemes his entire career. So I don't know, maybe. But I think there's enough out there that they'll probably come up with something one way or another.
I think so too. I think Omar Khan is not done wheeling and dealing to figure things out. And
I don't think he's done at all.
Right.
First of all, I never think Omar's done. I mean, if you learn one thing by now, it should be that. Yeah,
and I think that's the thing that we're sitting here saying, like, okay, what's next, Omar? Because something's coming from you, and we know something's coming from you. So whether it's a wide receiver 2, maybe a swing tackle for the depth on the offensive line, or that safety to replace Minkah Fitzpatrick, I would not put it past him to find additions for any of those guys coming up. But I got to talk to you about the tight end situation, because now I do have questions as far as who's going to be a bigger priority in the offense when it comes to targets and usage. And what does this change about how Arthur Smith conducts this offense? We will see how all of this goes moving forward. But let's talk about it in the next segment here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Alan Saunders, stick with us. We'll be right back. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Alan Saunders of SteelersNow.com. Alan, let's talk about the tight end situation. We've talked all about the defense. Jonnu Smith basically coming to the Steelers for a very irrelevant pick swap, a 5th for a 7th in 2027, not even the draft that we keep talking about being the one that they want to do because to get a quarterback. So I think there's some interesting stuff there for the Steelers. But where do you see Jonnu Smith's priority ranking in the Steelers offense right now? He was a Pro Bowl tight end last year, all time, Dolphins franchise records for receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns for a tight end, more yards than Pat Freiermuth had. Granted, Tua Tagovailoa, maybe in his prime, maybe a better passing situation than Pat Freiermuth had. But your thoughts on him versus Pat Freiermuth in the scheme of importance for the Steelers offense to get the ball?
I don't think we really know. I mean, I think Pat Freiermuth is a more well-rounded player than Jonnu Smith for a team that wants to run the ball a lot. I mean, remember, Jonnu Smith is playing basically like NFL blitz over in Miami. Like it's not the real thing, or at least nothing like what the Steelers are doing, right? And so, like, I don't think anyone should be expecting his Miami production to just copy and paste over to Pittsburgh, where they're going to run the ball a whole bunch more. I think obviously guys like Darnell Washington is going to play a lot, and you're not going to play 3 tight ends very often. So to me, I think Freiermuth will probably outsnap Smith pretty significantly because he's a better blocker in my opinion. But I think their target share could end up fairly equal because you get into situations where it's like 3rd and 10 or the 2-minute drill. I could see them wanting Smith on the field. I also think they're just going to play both of them a whole lot. And, I don't think it's any coincidence that the reported value on Jonnu Smith's extension is $12 million. You know who else makes $12 million a year? Pat Freiermuth. It's like, to me, this is 1A and B, not 1 and 2.
I feel you on that. I think that there's still a priority for Pat Freiermuth. He's the homegrown guy. He's the guy that they want to see be part of the future. He's also younger. He's going to be a guy that will stick around. But I see a lot of 12 personnel in the Steelers' future with this. And we talked about that with Darnell Washington and getting him involved. Now I see some more 13 personnel up in their future. And granted, they were doing that last year with Michael Pruitt and guys like that. I think if Darnell Washington's your third tight end, I'm still finding a way to get that guy on the field, because now you're going to talk about teams are going to be putting in bigger bodies. And now it's still going to come down to, okay, our top cover man's got to cover DK Metcalf. Our next guy's got to cover Pat. Our next guy's got to cover Jonnu. So we're going to have our third or fourth option, going to cover Darnell Washington here. And he's in space or he gets a jump ball. It's going to be tough to find guys to match with that, especially if you get in the red zone. And if Aaron Rodgers is able to feel comfortable in a pocket and set something up, there's a lot of ways that I think the Steelers can play around with that. So I think there's some really intriguing opportunities with that. But even with that, Alan, I think that there's going to be an interesting balance for what this Steelers offense is going to be able to do. And we still don't even know who's going to be finally on it, because I still think a wide receiver is going to be added at some point, and maybe a backup offensive tackle, just because that's a weak spot in the roster right now. But this team, we were talking about it going into this offseason with the moves they've made on the offensive line. They want to run the ball. They want to be physical. Now I'm kind of like, they still want to do that. They still want to be good at that. But now I think with the weapons that they're adding and Aaron Rodgers and his cerebral abilities, they're trying to be have a real balanced attack that's going to catch you off guard and hit you for big plays as well.
I think it's definitely balance. And I think it's having symmetry and the ability to do the same thing on both sides of the formation in terms of receiving is nice. But you got to add a wide receiver, another outside wide receiver to do that. I don't think this is a substitute for that. I think this is in addition to that kind of move. Whether that's, I don't know, Gabe Davis, or maybe a trade for someone like Romeo Doubs or something like that. I don't know, but they've got to find a way to get that one more piece. But I think it really provides the kind of attack that is hard to defend. And that's really what they have not been as an offense for a very long time in the passing game. They've been hard to defend against the run, but they have not been hard to defend in the passing game. And I think it really does start to provide a lot about, and you've seen what Arthur Smith has been able to do with them before too. I just think that's such a, there's always a question when you bring in a player, whether it's a trade or a free agent or a rookie or what have you, and you're looking at their old production, you say, okay, but what's he going to do with us? How's he going to be in our scheme? And yeah, do I think he's going to be as good as he was in Miami? No, but I think he can be as good as he was with Arthur Smith in Atlanta. I should feel pretty good about that. That's exactly the same offense. So and in many ways, you look at, man, like you look at what they had in Atlanta, and I know people did not love that Arthur Smith offense. Mostly football people hated how little Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson got the ball. But if they had anybody playing quarterback, I think that probably would have been a little differently. So, and you look at what he did that first year when it was just washed up Matt Ryan. It's pretty impressive. So, okay, let's see it with washed up Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I don't think he's totally washed up, but I mean, obviously way over the hill Aaron Rodgers. I think Arthur Smith can still make this work, and I think he's got the pieces to do it now. I will say this: there's a good amount of pressure on Arthur Smith to perform now. He didn't want Russell Wilson. They got Aaron Rodgers. Went out and got his favorite tight end. Got rid of his head case wide receiver. I can't ever recall a Steelers personnel moves dovetailing with the desires of a coordinator so perfectly as Arthur Smith this offseason. He's not going to have a lot of excuse. He went up and talked a lot this offseason about like, I didn't really get to run what I wanted to run and blah, blah. Not going to have those excuses next year. It's going to come through.
He does have to come through, and hey, again, he's certainly getting some pieces, and there's more probably coming on the way. Omar Khan, wheeling and dealing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's Alan Saunders. I'm Chris Carter. Alan, thanks so much for joining us. Let people they can find you, follow you, get more of your work.
A_Saunders_PGH on X, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. PGH Steelers Now, SteelersNow.com. You can find my podcast, Steelers Afternoon Drive and Steelers Morning Rush. It is today the 500th episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive, so go check that out on the Steelers Now YouTube page or anywhere you find podcasts.
Congratulations on that. That's awesome. Keep going. You guys do a great job. That's why we love having you here. Thank you.
Can't ever catch you because we each have a podcast Monday through Friday, and you started way before us. So we're fighting for second place at best over here, but we're doing our thing.
You guys are doing your thing. We love to see it. Thank you, Alan, for joining us. Thank you all for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, all the social media handles, all the same places. It's at Carter Critiques every single time. You can read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com. I hope to have a film study up by later today, ready to go for you guys, so be on the lookout for that. Also, you probably got a lot of questions because a lot of you guys are calling in, but if you haven't already, call in with your questions about this trade at 412-223-6644. Leave your name, where you're from, keep your question under a minute. We'll get you on the show. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.